Hello and welcome to the United Devil channel with me, JB. I hope we're all doing really well this morning. A little bit of technical difficulty just before we went live. OBS, which is the streaming thing that I use, is an absolute massive pain in my butt. Anyway, we are the 17th of July. Bobby is already in the chat, absolute legend of this chat. So good morning to you, sir. I hope you are doing really, really well today. I don't know if today's going to be a good news day or a bad kind of news day. Again, this is the beauty of not jumping on certain reports, even though I'm slightly behind at times with the news. I just don't think that it's worth jumping on at every single point, kind of just letting these stories play out. But I think it's worth then at a particular time kind of having our say on it as a community, and just kind of just giving our thoughts and feelings on this. So as the thumbnail says, basically Sancho gone in 24 hours and Rashford potentially gone as well. Or let's just talk about that one. So pretty much most outlets, most credible people out there, people like Alfredo Padula, so many people out there are basically reporting, and this has been out there now for quite some time, that Jadon Sancho, I think as we've spoken on here for quite some time, is now looking very likely and it's pushing hard that Juventus are looking to get this deal, or we're looking to get this deal done in 24 hours. So I think that's a bold statement to make. It's not necessarily what I 100% think on this, but the fact that it is progressing and we could get a here we go, I think at some point, which would be fantastic. Hopefully today, and we can have our feelings, thank God, and get this player off of the thumbnails. Completely, Bobby. Get in there. So if this is true, I don't think there's any smoke without fire. I think Juventus want to get this done. Now the ball is in our court. So the offer in terms of euro value, I think, is about 15. I think obviously that's probably not as much as I would like, but again, I think just to get him off of the books would be fantastic. I believe that would include add-ons as well to the deal, which I think would be great. So 15 million, what's that, about 12.5, 13 million pounds, just to get this played on, I think would be absolutely fantastic. Get him out the door. I think we could even break even on this, maybe make a little bit of cash on this as well. So I think this is something that I would bite the hand off to do. My only caveat to that, lots of other outlets, and just from basically what I think, I don't see how Sancho goes without some sort of payoff, somebody to actually pay him off. I'll give him away for a packet of crisps and a Mars bar, 100%, because at least you would then enjoy those crisps and the Mars bar. I'd even sell him for a packet of crisps. So I don't see how we get this deal done without somebody paying him some sort of fee. I do think it's hit home finally that pre-season wise, the famous five. So Garnacho, Malacia, Rashford, Sancho have all had to come back to train, which is what they need to do. We still pay their wages. And on to the wages bit as well, we can talk about that. Lots of other people have been talking about it, so we might as well have our 2 penneth on that as well. So I think a lot of reality now is the fact that they're back from their breakaways, and the realization now that they have to actually do something this year and play football. Sancho's obviously put his Xbox down for 2 minutes, and obviously now knows that he needs to move, because if he doesn't, he's just basically just going to sit on a bench for a year. So I really hope that this is true. Juventus just take him, absolutely. And the fact that we're going to get any cash for him, I still think it's strange that he's not just going to hang on for the money. This is why I do believe at some point it will come out that we're basically going to have to pay him off, which I think is just awful, but just to get this player out of the club. So 24 hours, this player could be gone. I'd love a here we go today. I think it will be more a couple of days. We're very slow at getting things done, at getting deals done. So I don't see how we do this in 24 hours. I think good clubs would get him out the door today, but I think this runs maybe to sort of end of the week. I hope not, and I hope we get him out of the club and just kind of now start to move on and move forward. Now, Di Marzio, again, he's in Italy. He was very good years, I think, probably 5 or 6 years ago. He's not been particularly great when it comes to United transfers in the last couple of years. I take this next bit with a little pinch of salt, but again, it's a Champions League club, and we almost have to talk about everything that basically happens. Juventus apparently going to offer a little cheeky loan bid for Rashford. Now, this has come again. This is come from a couple of sources, Italy. So I don't know if this is picking up interest for the player. When you look at it, I think this would be a loan offer. He's in the champion. They're in the Champions League. So as Rashford has been established, he wants Champions League, which I get that, because obviously he wants to fight for his England place. Juventus offering a little cheeky loan bid. I don't know how true that is. I don't believe that we're going to get. I don't believe he's going to get sold. I just can't believe how low his stock has fallen, considering a couple of years ago PSG were looking, were happy to pay like 100 mil, 80 mil for him, and nobody is coming in for Rashford who's coming in to buy. So I think we need to get him out alone. I think at this point, towards the end of the window, I'd be happy to loan him out. What slightly annoys me is that you've got these players, and yesterday we did an amazing show, I thought so anyway, on the 92-93 window, and kind of talking through those players that we had, the players who were in the team at the time, looking at and just talking about those sorts of players. I do think it's really important to look back, and it was so nice and reminded me of players who basically would play for the club, play for the badge, who didn't mind being on the bench, who knew that playing for this team was an honour. And yet we've got Rashfords and the Sanchos, who basically just they want to play for a Champions League club as if they deserve it. So Mark Harris is in the chat. Hello, buddy. Another legend of the chat. Liverpool buying Rolls Royces. United are the Arthur Daly's car yard looking at Ford Cortinas. I actually don't mind a Ford Cortina, but yeah. As an analogy, I think that's absolutely spot on. Liverpool, Chelsea, City. Liverpool, I think, are surprising a lot of people. I knew they'd do some business this year, but they are buying some. They're still taking risks, but they're going out and they're buying the best players in the world. They're trying to buy the best players in the world. It reminds me of Real Madrid slightly when they're winning the league, and yet they're still trying to buy the best players. So this year was so important as to not let our rivals, which they're not anymore, let's be honest, are miles ahead. They are years ahead of us. The Project 2028, absolute load of nonsense now, and it's beginning to look that way. So the fact that we are having to loan these players out, Rashford, the fact that we can't even pretty much give this player away. So Mike Harris says Liverpool have 2 youth teams and could probably best United's first team, more depth. Again, I will say I do think our youth, which I think, Mark, you've said quite a few times, and I agree with this, I do think our youth are good, and I think that we've said on here that we would love to give them a chance to play. I think Liverpool's second string team, I don't know much about their youth teams, but I think their second string team could definitely give us a run, and it wouldn't surprise me. Liverpool are doing things that we used to do, but they're better at it now. They're more efficient, and they are scary. They youth teams now, they seem to be bringing these players through and I don't know if their youth team play the way as like the men's team do, but they just seem to slide into that team. So I would be worried about the youth that they have as well. So Rashford, I'm sick and tired, I think, as most people are, of talking about him, obviously, unless you're Rashford FC, Sancho FC, and you love these players and you think that they should come back because they're gonna come back into this team and rip it up. They can't come back into this team. If Amorim lets him into the team, he looks weak. If United let them come back into the team, then they override the manager and just make him look like a fool. So these players do have to go. And Rashford, where's he going to end up? Juventus, I think it's going to be a no from me. I think their loan offer wouldn't cover the wages, and I do not want to cover his wages. The club, I don't think, want to cover that as well, and nor should they. So I think Rashford to Juventus basically is a no, but that might be a surprise. Bayern Munich, I think, is a possibility, but again, whether or not they'd want to pay the wages and a loan fee, I'd love to see an obligation to buy or an option to buy. And Barcelona, I think right now that's what he wants. But Barcelona, I think, will wait to the end of the window and basically try to get a low ball deal. Absolute try to smash us on that, but let's see what happens there. So Mark Harris, you have a scared manager who will not take risks. 7 at the back against Arsenal in the first game. Put Rashford in an Uber and give the driver 500 quid. Seal the doors and away you go. I think you'd stop the car and chuck him out, mate. Yeah, I Rashford needs to go. He's been told that he's this fantastic player. The fact that he wants Champions League. I mean, you're not in a position to demand that. If you do manage to get a loan move and you do manage to play in the Champions League, then you're very, very fortunate. Your name has preceded you, and I just hope you take the opportunity because this is your last chance. This is your absolute last chance. And if you don't take this chance, then Rashford, I think, comes back and basically he's going to be sat on the contract for the best part of 2 years, and I can just see loans and loans, and then we'll have to take a cheap deal on that. Ruben Amorim, 7 at the back. Right now, we can talk about players in and out, but Mark, I think you make a really good point. I think for the cameras, the manager is obviously, he's going to say that he's happy and whatever else, and he's trying to bring this. What he's trying to do is he's trying to bring this team together, keep the crap away, keep the Mercs away, hoping that he can kind of have this squad that will play together. I think behind the scenes, I think he's absolutely just scared. And the problem that we got with that is, if he comes out, and as Mark says there, I think if he 7 at the back, if he kind of alludes to that, but he starts playing from the first game. If he doesn't take risks, and if he doesn't play the way he wants to play, he almost needs to die on his sword. He needs to go, look, this is my football, the pre-season that I've had. Unless he comes out and says, look, the window's shit. I've not got the players that I want. They've not backed me. They've not supported me. So I can only play what the football that I can play with these players who finished 15th. If he comes out and says that, then respect. But he's never going to say that. And the moment that he says he's happy with these players, they've done X, Y, and Z, irrespective of whether behind the scenes, unless he comes out and defends his position, if he comes out and says he's happy, then he needs to die on that sword, and he needs to come out and he needs to basically live and die on what his tactics are. And if he, as Mark says there, if he comes out scared, then he's done. I don't mind. Well, this is not true. If Arsenal in the first game get absolutely tanked, which right now is a probability of the players that they've signed, I would prefer to get tanked, playing a risk style, playing his style, playing a risk style, and say, look, this is me, this is what I expect the teams to do. Because we know that these players aren't great. We know that Ineos and the Glazers have basically tried to do this on the cheap, and we're not stupid. But what I will not accept, I can accept a loss. I can accept that he's probably not got his plays, but what I can't accept is this defensive, scared survival from the first off. I'd much rather lose every single game. Obviously not, but I'd much prefer that. And knowing these players are trying to play a system, as much as he did that in the previous year, I think he needs to either play his brand or that's it. Mark says again, Kone Chido needs to play against Arsenal, three up front, throw a few kids in and call it a project. I think that's a really interesting comment and take on it. I think the moment that he does that, again, he admits that this team is not good enough. I think only somebody brave would pick a Kone and a Chido and put those into the team. I will say for Chido, I don't want him to start this year. And the reason for that for me is I want him on the bench, and I definitely want him to play more. The reason is because I don't want to burn this player. He's still a young kid. He still needs to grow. He's a beast now, but he still needs to grow. And the problem with that is if we overplay him, and whilst he's still trying to get bigger and stronger, and he's just going to be a bigger guy, I don't want to burn him. I don't want to injure him. I don't want to stunt his growth. I think Mainu last year suffered heavily from that. I think being overplayed, and we relied on that play. There's only some players that physically are able to do that. Kone, I definitely think to bring him into the team, and definitely bring a few of those kids, starting to bring them into the team. I would love to throw caution to the wind, but the thing is that when the likes of Beckham, Scholes, Neville's come into the team, they were a little bit older. They were 21, 22. So they kind of matured, and they kind of weren't going to grow more. And that's what we did really well. So I do agree partly with that. I do think these kids now, these like the likes of Akone, definitely needs to be brought into the team and start to show us what this is about. You know, we are living right now off of this, the under 21s. You know, we're bringing in these kids and they're going to be fantastic and like they're going to be great, but we need to start seeing this output. We need to start seeing these kids come through. I don't want to overplay them, but at the same time, you know, we still need that depth. And if it means that these kids, because don't forget, we've only got the Premier League. There's nothing wrong in giving these kids like a half an hour. Like, what's wrong with that? You know, striker situation, I think with Cheeto is going to be very interesting. How much he's going to play this year if Højlund stays, it's going to be very interesting. So I am all for playing the kids, but I think it has to be the right mix, because I don't want to burn these kids. You know, I don't want us to burn through these kids because we don't have the money. And that would just be another failure on this club's part. Anthony, quick one on him, and this makes me laugh. Anthony, apparently the price is 50 million. I don't think that's pounds. 50 million for him. So Betis I've basically been told to do one. I don't know how wise that is, and we've put a price of 50 million on his head. Now, if Anthony can achieve that money from where we were to where we are, I mean, that's testament to him. That's not testament to Amorim, his acumen for business. That's not testament to us. That's testament to that player. And if Anthony gets that move, then that's all down to him, and, you know, respect to the player for wanting to play and leave the club. You know, there's not a lot to say on that. So hopefully we can sort of achieve that and get him out of the club. Anything close to 50 million, I'd snatch their hand off. So Mark Harris says, why are United tarting around with talks with Emi Martinez? The goalkeeper should have been done weeks ago. United are a snail in concrete. I think that's been established. Martinez, again, I love that, and I think you sum up how I feel. I think how many people feel. What are they doing? You know, Onana's injury, has it put a spanner in the works? I don't think so. I do think there's an acceptance that we do need to get this position done. But I think we were going to go for a striker, maybe not as expensive, but I think the shift now is towards the keeper, and I do think that we are now looking at this keeper. I do agree with you on that. I'm going to slightly pivot and then come back to that, because I think that comment-wise, and I think the next thing is going to link into that. Mbeumo. Now, the reason why that's going to link into that, firstly, is because we can't do many deals at once. We can't do more than one deal at a time. So the fact that this deal was taken 7 weeks means that we're not doing other deals. Onana fractured his arms picking up his ball. Bungs from William Hills and Ladbroke, allegedly. I'm glad that you put that in there. That is fantastic. So we can't do these deals. So basically nothing has happened. So until Mbermo gets done, then we move from one deal. So this is why we're not getting these deals done. It's because we're still stuck on this deal. So the goalkeeper situation, I do think now has pivoted from a striker. I'm now convinced that we're going to go cheap on a striker. I think that's it. I don't know how everyone else feels in the chat, but I definitely believe we're going to go for a Vlahovic now. Do I dare say Calvert-Lewin? Vardy, I think, is definitely off of the table. Wrexham are looking to take him, so I'm more than happy with that one. So that's one of the trio that I don't want, but I do think we are going to go cheap on a striker. So, and I think that is because I think we're pivoting now to a keeper. So I think the money allocated possibly to that, and I think we are going to go for a keeper. So I think once the Mbermo deal is done, whether or not we pull out, whether or not it gets done, I think that we'll then pivot to a keeper next, because I think that a striker, I don't think we'll have a striker for the tour, and I think that we're going to do that towards the end of the window when we've planned what we're going to do with basically the players that we got and whether we can make do with those players. Mbermo, Mark says that pivoting to relegation. Oh, I can't comment on that. I mean, that terrifies me. Relegation doesn't, but relegation with Ineos and the Glazers still here, that terrifies me. Mbermo is no Ronaldo, overpriced massively for one good season. That's a very interesting take on that one. I have had my own thoughts on that one. I mean, you don't get 20 goals in a season. Maybe he was good last year, or decent last year, but nowhere near good this year. As for overpriced, I think we are starting to get to that point now. So in Burma, so there were many, obviously, reports out there where the deal would be done. I think we were quite real on here. We've been talking about this for a little while on here, that as much as we hoped to get it done, I thought it would get done on Wednesday. I've believed that the joy of this deal has now been sucked out. Need to be careful there with what I say. And this deal is just done. Now, what's adding to that? And as we have said on here, whilst other channels, some other bigger channels, have been on their sword saying no, it's not 70 million. So Brentford haven't moved the goalposts. It's 55 plus X. Blah 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 blah. Well, actually, it transpires now. Everybody in the world and his wife, Luckhurst, Jackson, whoever is a correspondent for this club or reports on this club, it's come out now that that Brentford have actually moved the price. The reports and the stories are that we were going to do the deal. The deal was very close to being done, hence why that was reported a couple of weeks ago. And then so Brentford went, nah, we now want close to 70 million. And this comes back to Mark Harris's point there, is that even though he did have a really good season, I think around 62.5, 65 is around about the market price. Do I think it's overpriced? I do, because I think the market right now is. I think the market is being bumped up, and especially as you go towards the back end of this market, 62, 65. I think if it was 62 plus 5, as much as maybe it was it is overpriced. I think that's the market price. So I'm not quibbling too much over that. I do think it is a risk, as with every transfer that you do of that price. It is a risk, but I think it's more of a calculated risk. I'm not giving Ineos credit whatsoever, but I think if you were looking at players to sign, as Mark said there, my only thought on this is that he's been good for one season, and whether he can carry that at this club, because there is an expectation of playing well every week. Mark says, do you mean the Brentford moved the goalpost? Both, mate, absolutely both. Onana couldn't catch cold. Yes. So Brentford moved the goalposts apparently. So United now are apparently holding firm on their offer. I don't know if that's still 55 plus 7 or 60. I don't know if we've offered 60 plus 5. But it has come to this point now where if Brentford are holding their ground and saying we want 70 million, what do we do? Is that overpriced? I mean, I'll put it to the chat. Obviously, I know what Mark thinks on this one. But I am starting to come to this. I think the problem is, what we've done now is that even though the goalposts have been moved and the price has been upped, they know that we've backed ourselves into a corner. How can you spend 7 weeks negotiating a deal? Mark says if United were a couple, there would be 10 counsellors in the counselling session. They'd be so toxic that I reckon there'd be at least 15, mate. That United, as much as they're standing firm, they've backed themselves into a corner. How can Ineos and the Glazers have thrown Amber in under the Jose bus? 100%. And actually, we can talk about that as well. So that's a good point. They've backed themselves into a corner. I don't see how they cannot do this deal. I don't see how they can spend 7 to 8 weeks on this deal and not get it done. They've not done anything else. They can't do anything else. This negotiating team of experts, best in class my arse, that they cannot get this deal over the line. I know the goalposts have moved, but then what you then do is that you move on to the very next target, and they can't because they haven't got one. It's this target or nothing at all. Rios, probably going to go to Roma. I'd even argue that you could pivot to him. I know there's a different position, but I'd even argue that Rios, you could pivot to him. Fernandes could play in of another 10 role, and then Rios, I think, is a better fit for the role that Fernandes will ultimately play, that sort of number 8 box-to-box sort of player, which he definitely is not. But we can't. We're coming to the point now where we need to make a choice. Are we going to pay this? If we hold firm, we can't do anything else. If we were good enough as a team, and I mean a backroom staff team, to get these transfers done, I wouldn't be too concerned that we could. The A team could be on this deal, and then the B team could then be on other deals. But we're not. Nothing is happening until this deal gets done. So they need to make a choice. They need to either pay up, and I'm all for standing our ground. I don't want to get our pants pulled down, and I don't want us to pay this money. I agree with this deal, and if they walk away, then that's a different stance. But what are they going to walk away to? This is ultimately the question. Is they either pay up or shut up and move on and just accept that a small club, and we've said this, a small club where you have to literally walk through someone's house to get onto the stadium, get in your seat, are schooling United. They're schooling their transfers, and I'm sure we've got more people who do this than them, and they are sat down and they are schooling them. Now, the only thing about this is can they afford not to sell in Burmo? The Brentford team, the club, can they afford not to take this money? Are there any pants left? Or just, I think we just go commando, mate, all of the time. There's nothing else to pull down. You're right. I just think we go commando. People can see us. We're basically exposed. We've exposed ourselves, and we've exposed ourselves again. We can't pivot, and that's the point here. Is that we've left it too late. There's no one else out there, and if we do pivot, then you basically know there's a scattergun approach, and people know that we've got 65 mil to spend, and we're going to get done. So, other reports in this is that we want this done before the tour, which is in like 5 days' time, which we leave for 5 days' time. So I'm now of the opinion that if he's not on this tour, that we walk away from this deal. I'm not saying that I want to walk away from this deal. I think that people are invested now. People are talking like he's already here and like he's scored 20 goals this season. We've got to come to this point, not us as fans, because we wouldn't put ourselves in this position. But as a club, we need to go, what are we doing? We either pay the money or we walk away. And we've backed ourselves into a corner. This is something that we've done to ourselves. This is not something that other clubs have done. I know the goalposts have been moved, but that's their inclination to do that. So in Burma, as much as I didn't want to spend time on that, he's done. Amarin is a concrete in an operating theatre. Sorry, sack him now. That's an interesting one, Mark. We always talk about things on here, and we don't shy away from the comments and people's opinions on here. If you sack him now, I think, are you happy to write off a season? Because the season is gone. Any players that we've signed, which is one player, targets, they get moved. Another question is, can we afford to sack him? Even if you are hammering out right now, and you've had enough, and I think after the last season, I think that's a valid opinion to have. It's not my opinion, but I think it's a valid opinion to have. What do we do next? And that would be my question, not because I'm trying to call people out, but it's a question that where would we go next? And are we saying that we're going to write the season off? And this is the bit for me, is right now, the beginning of last season when Ten Hag was here, we had a couple of options, and we could have said like to pivot to but are we just going to put ourselves into a position now where we've now had a season of players playing in a different position? Are we going to abandon this? I am all for opinions, and 100% all for listening. And if you want to get sacked, if you want him sacked, then that's fine. But my honest question is, what do we do? And the problem is that we don't have plans. He's only been here a year, not even a year. What do we do? And that's an honest question, is that I don't know what we do. We haven't done the kid project yet. Cunha, Mainu, Heaven, Dorgu are all under 21s. And I think they're all play. Mainu, I'm not sure where he fits in. Fernandes, for me, should have gone. I know people love him, and he's a stat padder. I think he should have gone. I think that would transform the team. Maybe Amorim knows that he's not going to get a bunch of plays, so he's a bit like, if I lose my perceived best player in my team and I'm only going to get 3 players, I need to keep him. But I do think we're going to go Cunha, Mainu, Heaven, Dorgu. I think this is a good season for him. I think he can come on this year. Heaven, I'm hoping that he can play quite a lot this season. Maguire, as much as he had a good end to the season, I don't really want to see him. So, I think you've named players there yet. I think you've named players that I think can go into the team. My only question mark is the Mainu one, because I would, on the back of last season, he physically looked drained and tired. If he can have a really good pre-season and maybe he's physically a little bit older now, I'd love to see him in the team. But again, I don't know where he plays. So I agree with you with that one. I think we need to see we need to see these kids who are not kids anymore, who are these young men, 20, 21, start to come into this team and start to kind of embed themselves. I'm not saying they need to play every single game. Again, I don't want to burn these players, but I do think it's really important we start seeing what we've been told about the youth. We have this amazing youth team. Let's start to show that. Amas as well, I think I'd like to start seeing him in. I think he was 17 last season. Is he 18 this year? Luke Shaw's done. He's basically, I don't even know how you would describe Luke Shaw. I mean, he's a player that steals a living. I think if he plays, I worry. If Luke Shaw comes back into the team, then that's a red flag for me. I want that player gone. I think he steals a living, and I want him to go. How long do you I think give Amorim with Cunha and no Mbeumo? 10 games? That's a very good question. I'm going to stick to my stance, and these are my 2 points on this, right? These is for me, and again, people can have their own opinion on this. Is that we brought in a manager, forced him in. He didn't have to come in, but he did. And if Cunha is the only signing, maybe a keeper, my first thoughts on this one are, if he has to stick with the same crap he had last year, pretty much the whole team, we've not given him the tools to succeed. Okay, I don't think that we've given him the tools to succeed. And what's he supposed to do, right? He's not been given his players, and it was his choice, ultimately his choice to come in. We don't know what he was sold, but he's going to have these same players who are low IQ, in my opinion. They can't play the system, and what's he supposed to do? Okay, but then that kind of leads then into Amorim has to come out and say something. He has to come out and say, I'm not happy with this window, or allude to that. If he comes out and he says, no, I'm happy, I've signed off these players, I've got one player in, and I'm happy, I think I can work with this team, then he's got to stand on that, and he has to live on that. The moment he comes out and says, no, I'm happy with this team, this is my team, then he needs to show what he's about. He's going to have plenty of time with these players, the players that apparently he's going to be happy with, and he's going to have to spend time with these players. And if he's happy with that, I then need to see him manage. I then need to see him manage these players. I need to see he won't come out as he's a company man and he's happy with Anana. I do think there are certain times, right, where you've got to toe the party line. Now I think other like Ollie was like the best example of this. He was a complete company man. He come out and there are things that a manager has to say, I do think, to inspire confidence in players, and there are things that he's got to toe the party line to a degree. But what I did like kind of last year was he did speak his mind a bit, and it's, for me, it's the things he doesn't say and he alludes to. Those are the important points. The moment he starts, stop that. The moment he stops that, I'm concerned. So if he comes out, Redknapp wasn't a company man and he got the sack. Again, I think that we all agree that he was probably the manager that we needed. And exactly, he I think was really important for the fan base to hear the things that he said, the players that he called out. You look at what happened to those players that were signed, 100%. Amorim now, I think second season is we're going to see what he's all about. With the players, I need to see some improvement from these players. If he's happy with these players and he says, I want these players in my squad, and he's happy, then they're his players. What can he do with those players? Now, the side for me, the caveat to that is that I don't want any ambiguity. I don't want there to be an excuse. If Amorim is sacked, I want to confidently say, which we can't, because Ineos are ridiculously bad at their job and they're destroying this club. I personally, if it goes, I want to say that Amorim is Timu version of Ten Hag with no signings. Oh, tell you what, Mark, you are coming out of them today, and the thing is, right, is that I'm never going to call you out on this, because I think you comment in the chat and your opinions are great, and I love the things that you come out with, because it opens up for us to talk about. Be really interesting to see how right you are on this one, and I'm looking towards you on this one, because I do like the fact that you've got your views on this, and you are quite staunch in your views, and you're just like, no, this is my view on this. And I just wonder how right that you'll be on this, because my thoughts now on it are, Amorim's got a squad of players, okay? If he's happy with the squad and he comes out and says that he's happy, he needs to do something with these players. How can he improve? Does he need to tweak his system? I don't want him to, and I'm not saying let's go back to a back four, but what can he... It's his job now to coach these players. It's his job now to get something out from this team. But my problem with that is he hasn't got his players to play this system. And if he gets sacked, if he loses the first 5 games, then he's gone. They'll give him till 10 games, but then I think he's done. And the problem for me with that is not because people like Mark will be right. You know, you've called it, and you know I've got no problem with that. You know, and you're saying now that, you know, he's not the best coach, and you may be proved right. But I want to be able to say he had his signings, he had 5 or 6 players in that were his players, and he still got sacked. And then I'll come out and say, yeah, you know, he wasn't the guy. You know, maybe he's not as good as he thought he was. You know, you can do it in the Portuguese league, but can you really do it in a league whereby pretty much any team can be any team on the day? And that's all I'm asking for. That's all I'm asking for. You know, there are red flags to me, the way that he's devalued some players. I'm not saying these players didn't deserve to be called out, but I do think there are ways to call players out. And when you devalue a player, but again, was that his task to do? The only thing I'm asking for, and I want to see, is I want to see no excuses to get rid of a coach again. So I want him to see him with his players. So if he gets Mbeumo, Cunha's here, Martinez in goal. Striker wise, I don't think that's his fault. But again, I'd like to see another 2 or 3 plays. But if he gets more signings, then I'm more comfortable. And at the time, I'll say, look, we gave him a chance. I just want to give him a chance, because what terrifies me is what's next. I think as a fan base, we're very scared about, can we go lower than what we are now? And people right now are saying, we're not gonna, we'll stay up this season. We're not going to go down this season. There's no chance. We're looking at 10th or 8th or 6th. And I generally think that people are doing what they always do at the start of every year. Oh, we can win the league. We can do this. We are nowhere near. And if Amrin has the same set of players with 1 or 2 plays in, I do not see how we shoot up that league. The only way that we finish 10th is if other teams around us have a bad season because they've lost players. Not because we're better than them, not because we've improved so much that we've shot up the table. It's because of the misfortune of others. Now you can argue there, that's what happens. But I'd rather shoot up a table because we've improved and we've got better. Mark says he's had the first team under 21s, 18s. Not one player has improved. Like putting diesel in a petrol engine, it ain't going to work if the gaffer is scared. And Mark, I think we're going to find that out, mate. I generally think we're going to find that out. Amrin definitely had a whiff last season towards the end, as all of the coaches do, of a man who was without ideas. The Spurs final showed that. I think if he was going to show what he was about, I think that final, I think in a lot of people's minds basically was the nail in the coffin. Sometimes, and even I will have to admit this, is that sometimes we'll sign a player and we think a player is the best thing in the world, and even after a year to 6 months, we can say he's not the guy. We can do this with this coach as well. Like we sometimes we can admit that Mason Mount being played in I know I for me that was the first time that I really questioned him. Now there were glimpses in the season where I thought, oh, actually, do you know what? He knows what to do. And Mason Mount, I keep forgetting about him. Where's he going to play? Like, imagine if we bring in Mbeumo and Cunha's here. Where does he play? Where does Mount play? Imagine we sign these 2 players, 62, 65, and Mason Mount is there, and he gets in the team because of these. Like, what do we do? And to come back to Mark's point as well, is that Mason Mount in the final to me was somebody that was scared. That was a manager who obviously saw this player, trusted this player, and played him in the final because he was scared. He thought that he was going to be the player who would kind of settle down the squad and be that calming, and he was just awful. So I think, Mark, you are gonna have your wish. I think we are, and when I say wish, I think we're gonna see it pretty quickly what's going to happen this season. I don't think we're going to get to Christmas in terms of if this team doesn't perform. If this team does how I think it will do, I think we need to be prepared. I think a lot of fans are under this illusion that we are going to rise up the table. How can it get worse than last season, right? We've been falling this way for years, and okay, fine, we may finish, say, 11th, but what's to say that we're not going to go down next season? We've got a whiff of a team that are don't have any confidence. And as much as Amorim, and there's pictures now out of the team kissing each other and doing high fives and winning team pictures, I mean, it's just a load of nonsense. It's propaganda by the club to basically just cover up a big pile of crap. Amorim won't have the time to implement the system. Every other EPL manager just picks the team. This is why he needs players. Just reeks of Ten Hag 2.0. I agree with you. He's got no time, which I think is sad in a way. But I also get that football is a business of now, and as fans, I think because of what we've had to put up with, we don't give people time. Should he be given time? Probably yes. I think he does need time, and I just don't think he's going to be allowed that time. I think this is what he signed up for. This is what he's even alluded to it himself. He's not going to get time. He's even kind of put that out there that he may not be the guy, because don't forget he's got basically this year another window, and then that's it. We either let him go next season or we give him another contract. So this is it. This is whether or not he's got the players in, whether or not he gets his players in, whether or not he's got an excuse, whether I like it or not, whether I think he needs to be given time. He's not going to be given the time. And this is now where, as a coach, it needs to back himself. So I think, Mark, ultimately, we're going to see really quickly. Now, my question to Mark, Sir Jim, if offered his investment back, the job is too big, United, rose glasses, it's all. I don't think he would. I don't believe Sir Jim, and you may have your opinion on this. I think Sir Jim is a charlatan. I think it's a vanity. I think there's an opportunity here to make some money. I think Sir Jim is here for profit. I think what they want to do with the Glazers is keep this team. I think they thought they could get 4th, 5th with the players that we've got. And I think their aim is to, get 8th. Europe, they don't really care about the Champions League, which is a mistake, and they kind of want to finish it in and around that 6th and 8th, and then limp on like that until the stadium is built, and then I think he would leave. I don't think this has got anything to do with him. I don't think this is anything to do with a local lad coming in. He's basically the face. He's the face of what the Glazers have wanted to do since 2017. Regenerate, use the land, and make a ton of money. Why would anybody think anything else? Like, just on the basis that Sir Jim is a businessman. As an opportunity, as an investment, what a really good way and cheap way you put in. I can't remember how much like the price was, but you're going to get triple that back. Like, and all you've got to do is wait like X amount of time. I'm that's just him. Sadalo, Bruno Højlund, great nucleus of the team. Gary Neville kept quiet. The Prime Minister of Football, Neville, best in class, wants his team to do well on and off the pitch. That's Danny B's in the chat. Good morning, afternoon, sir, wherever you are. Neville is, again, a businessman, or he thinks he is. And he keeps quiet because he's on the payroll. It's quite clear that he is. I mean, I have to be careful what I say. I'm going to allegedly, and in my opinion, say that I think he's on the payroll. It's quite clearly is. I think he's got vested interest interest in the regeneration. I think that will be proven. The only way we get out of this is if people kick up enough fuss that the regeneration stops, and that's pretty much, I think, the only way out of this. Otherwise, we're going to be stuck with them for many years to come. They won't invest in this team. How are we going to have a team left? And we are going to have another windows the same as I think this is a typical window. I think if we survive until kind of, and the interesting thing actually is that I've been going back through the transfers like 92 to 93, 93 to 94. I'm going to do some videos on those. But what is interesting about that early door is that we had a really good team, and all we really did is add one or two players. That was it. We only really added one or two players. It wasn't probably till later on that's when we started to get rid of kind of like two or three and then bring in two or three. But historically, for the first couple of years, we only ever brought in one or two maximum, probably one kind of like player that we thought would be a star. And I wonder if this is what we're trying to do again. We're trying to repeat that, trying to bring in a single star. Wake up again. In Burmo, I think it's time to talk about sacking. I don't disagree. So I couldn't agree more. Omar, I think he's just he's a Glazer puppet. He's a business person. He's not a football guy. So Wilcox for me is I think he's a funny one, because I do believe he's a football guy. I do believe that he knows what he's doing, but can he get it done? So you look the likes of Arsenal. Can't remember his name now, but they've got that. He's come in, and look at what he's done. And he got Shesko up to a certain point and then pivoted completely. So Wilcox for me, Ashford was spitting facts and they sacked him. This is why this chat is, I think, is fantastic, because we don't hold back, and we do question these things, which I think in this windows we 100% need to do this. And Burmo isn't here. I do think that's a failure. I think he's not, and you can fall on the line of whether we think he's he's costing more than he should, or 65 blah, blah. I do understand that some deals take time, but you either continue with it. It's a failure for me that we can't pivot away because we don't have a transfer list. We don't have a target. Where are the targets? And this is the reason why we cannot pivot, because the window was planned so badly that we can't pivot. And this is failure. The fact that we're taking 7 weeks to do a deal, we can't pivot. We're forced into a corner, and there isn't an option A or B in the number 10 position. In any other industry, wherever I've worked, failures, you get sacked. And Ashworth, I do wonder, and it will never come out. It might do. Was he just another person who's come into this club and was just like, this is what we need to do? And because he spoke the truth, again, Glazers don't like the truth. Ineos don't like the truth. They like spin, and they like to muddy the waters. They like to spin us round and not tell the truth. Hence, that's why they don't come out and they don't really engage with fans, and they don't talk. So I think you're right, and I think this is a really pertinent conversation to have about this window and about everything that's leading up to this window. Poorly planned. Ashworth was sacked. We spent more money sacking him than it. Like it just doesn't make sense. So what we're now left with in a window, basically to sum it up, is Sancho pretty much crawling across the line. The Rashford thing, a player that is there, it needs to be loaned. That can't happen. Anthony, we're asking 50 million now for this player. Whether we can get that or not, I don't know. Malacia, we can't even give him away. And we just don't know what we're doing. So Danny B says, so Barada should never have been the main guy deciding on new coach, that the director's job, and they sacked him. Omar, when he first signed, I thought fantastic. I thought what a coup for us. We've pulled him out, and again, this is what we were led to believe, is that City wanted to keep a hold of him, and they didn't want him to go, and his reputation was fantastic. He's come from a club who are successful, treble, like, oh wow, like we've just pulled him out of one of the biggest, most successful clubs in the world as of now, and there's a reason why they let him go. I think he needs to be sacked. I cannot see what he's done in any other industry. Somebody of his position, it's a results industry. Whether he likes it or not, that's the job that he's chosen to do. But he's still here. And I don't think there's any chance of him being sacked. You look at what the Glazers, and this is why we all know the Glazers are still in charge. You look at who they kept in charge for the best part of 10 years, non-football people, and look at what they did. So I think he's safe. I think these are really important chats to have, and I think right now we can speculate. I think this is definitely a what do you call it? This is something that we need to unravel and investigate towards the end. I think we need to question now, and I think we need to push. But I think all of these comments that we make on here, you guys in the chat, I think what you say, I think really opens up debate and chat, and you really make some good points. And I think that what will be interesting is that how many of these comments that are intelligent comments, funny comments, I wonder how many of these that we're going to get that are actually factual, or that happen. So I'm almost looking forward towards the end of the window to basically see what we've said on here and how it plays out, particularly in the first 5 games, to see where we are on that. And yeah, I think that many things on here are going to be proved right. So guys, I'm going to end the show there. OBS behaved itself today, and yeah, I think again what I love about this channel and what I love about these shows is that you guys interact, you guys are funny, and I know through all the comedy, like some Mark's there to lift our spirits, because we need some of that. I've tried to be positive in this, but yeah, the positivity is basically coming from you guys in the chat. It's coming from the fan base. It's almost like I feel like we're in, and this is probably an extreme example, it's almost like we are at war, and we're all like huddled together over a fire, and we're just trying to keep warm, and we're trying to be like happy, even though there's crap around us. There's bombs. We've been destroyed, but yet we're trying to keep each other, our spirits up. So yeah, guys, you are fantastic. I love to do this show every single day, and I'll continue for as long as I can. As always, I'll try and come back whenever there's any news. I try not to jump on every piece of news because I know I'm not going to be the first one on it, but I think it's really important for us to debate it after the fact, as we do on here. Thank you very much, guys. As always, have a fantastic day, whatever you do. I will jump on if there's anything to report of worth, and if not, then I'll probably see you tomorrow at the same time again. So thank you all, and amazing show. Thank you to the chat. Amazing as always, guys, and